Something about this whole thing doesn't add up. You've got a pastor, one of the most famous in the world, saying he doesn't take a salary, doesn't own jets, doesn't live that lifestyle. But at the same time, there's a mansion, millions in book deals, private travel, and a church bringing in massive money. So the question is simple. Is this transparency, or is this just really good PR? Because once you start pulling on this thread, it doesn't just stop at Joel Osteen. It starts exposing a system most people never question. And look, this isn't even about attacking somebody for being rich. That's not the issue. The issue is clarity. Because when people hear pastor, they think sacrifice, service, humility. They don't think multi-million-dollar homes or global media empires. But here's where it gets strange. The more you look into Lakewood Church, the more you realize this isn't just a church, it's a machine, a very polished, very successful machine. And recently, conversations around it have started heating up again. People are asking new questions, looking at old answers differently. Not necessarily new accusations, but definitely new attention. And once you understand how this whole thing actually works, you might start seeing it in a completely different way. Because what looks simple on the surface gets a lot more complicated underneath. Now here's where things start to feel off. Because when people questioned Joel Osteen about wealth, jets, yachts, all that, his response was simple. I don't own those things. And technically, that might be true. But here's the part nobody slows down to think about. You don't have to own something to live like you do. Private jets, you can charter them. Luxury lifestyle, you can expense it. High-end access, you just need the right system behind you. And that's where things start to shift. Because people hear, I don't own a jet, and they imagine a completely different lifestyle than reality. But if you're flying private regularly, does ownership even matter at that point? That's the disconnect. And this is exactly why critics keep pushing back. Not because of wealth, but because of how it's explained. Because the public hears one thing, but the lifestyle suggests something else entirely. And once people start noticing that gap, they start asking bigger questions. Like, if that part feels unclear, what else aren't we seeing? Then there's the part that sounds the most impressive. I don't take a salary. And to be fair, Joel Osteen has said he stopped taking a salary from the church around 2005. At first, that sounds like pure integrity. Like, okay, respect. But then you look one step deeper, and things get a little more complicated. Because the question isn't just if you take a salary, it's where your money actually comes from. Books, speaking, media deals. And here's the key detail. Those opportunities don't exist in a vacuum. They exist because of the platform. And where did that platform come from? From Lakewood Church, from the audience, from the reach, from the exposure built through years of church growth. So now the conversation changes. It's no longer he doesn't take a salary. It becomes, did the church help create the engine that generates his personal wealth? And if it did, how separate are those two things really? Let me break this down in a way that's easier to see. Imagine someone starting from scratch on YouTube. No audience, no money, no reach. They invest their own time, their own resources, build it up slowly, and eventually they make millions. Nobody questions that. That's fair. Now flip it. Imagine you're given a massive platform from day one, tens of thousands of people, global broadcasts, built-in trust. That's what a megachurch provides. So when you lead or launch books, and those books sell millions, is that independent success, or is that success built on something funded by donations? That's the part people debate. Because now it's not just about effort, it's about leverage. And once you see that difference, you start to understand why this topic keeps coming back up. Because the lines between nonprofit influence and personal profit start to blur. And when those lines blur, people start paying attention. Now, zoom out for a second. Because this isn't just about one person. This is about a system. A system that, if used a certain way, can generate serious wealth. Here's how it works in simple terms. A church grows. Donations increase. The organization gains assets, property, media reach, influence. And that organization, being nonprofit, comes with major tax advantages. Now, within that structure, people can be paid, families can be employed, allowances can be provided, housing, transportation, security, all inside the system. And if someone wanted to take it further, they could build businesses around that system, media companies, production teams, security services. And those businesses can get paid by the church. Now, this doesn't mean everyone is doing something wrong, but it does mean the structure itself can be used in very different ways. And that's what makes this conversation uncomfortable, because once you understand the system, you realize it's not as simple as it looks on the surface. And this is where things move from theory into real-world backlash, because over the years, Lakewood Church hasn't just faced questions, it's faced controversy. Take Hurricane Harvey. When the city was flooding, people expected the church to open immediately as a shelter. But when that didn't happen right away, the internet exploded. Now, the church later did open its doors, but by then, the damage was already done, because perception matters. Then there was the PPP loan situation. During COVID, the church received government-backed relief funds. And again, legal? Yes. But to critics, it raised another question. Why does a massive church need that kind of assistance? And these moments stack. Individually, they might be explainable, but together, they create a pattern that people start to question. And once people start connecting patterns, they stop looking at isolated events and start looking at the bigger picture. Now, to be fair, there's another side to all of this. Supporters of Joel Osteen will tell you this is being overblown. They'll say he doesn't take a salary. His books are voluntary purchases. His message helps millions of people, and that matters, because not everyone sees this as exploitation. Some people see it as impact. They see a pastor who built something positive and simply benefited from it. And from that perspective, there's nothing wrong with success. So now you've got two completely different interpretations. One side sees influence being leveraged for wealth. The other sees a successful ministry reaching the world. And the truth? It probably depends on what you believe about the role of religion itself. Because if you believe faith should be separate from profit, this looks questionable. But if you believe influence can naturally lead to income, then this might seem completely normal. And that tension is what keeps this conversation alive. So now we're left with something bigger than just one church. This isn't just about Joel Osteen. It's about how systems like this operate and how little most people actually understand about them. Because on the surface, everything looks clean. No salary, no ownership, no obvious wrongdoing. But underneath, there's influence, structure, leverage. And that's where things get complicated. Because none of this has to be illegal to still raise questions. And that's the part people keep coming back to. Not, is this allowed, but is this transparent? And maybe that's why these conversations keep resurfacing. Not because something new is proven every time, but because something never feels fully explained. And until it is, people are going to keep asking, looking closer, digging deeper. Because if this system works the way some people think it does, then the real story might not be about one pastor at all. It might be about how many others are doing the exact same thing just without anyone paying attention yet.